I am continuing to do really well with this mass furnace attack, massive visibility spell. I think this is 3 days in a row. So I want to share with you guys a few replays and talk about what I'm looking for. I've had a lot of people reach out and say like, it kind of works well for me, but I'm time failing a lot, or I'm not exactly sure what my target is with the Royal Champion charge versus how to put the furnaces down. So we're going to go over a few replays today, and I am going to kind of teach you what I've learned over doing this attack a whole bunch of times in friendly challenges. And I honestly, I feel confident enough with this army now that I've swapped from Rocket Loon Fireball and Root Riders on my main account, and I'm basically using this exclusively. So let's dive in, and we will dissect these replays so that I can teach you guys what I'm looking for and doing during the attack so that you guys can be just as successful as I am. So let's dive into the first replay. First, let me go over kind of everything. I'm just going to quickly scroll over the hero equipment, and these are the pets that I'm using with this. We've changed to the Rocket Spear. I've made a couple of changes. Actually, someone named Jay suggested that I make these changes to the spells and the Rocket Spear. And this is the same guy that actually initially showed me that Super Miner army that I did a while back. I'm not going to say that I had fun with miners because I didn't. Okay, so ignore that. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the difference between this attack and what we've done. This Rocket Spear makes the charge a lot easier because you don't have to chase the Royal Champion with your invis spells if you use the haste file. But what I'm looking for with my Royal Champion specifically is how many multi-inferno towers can I take out with her. That is like the only defense that this army struggles with, especially if it's raged up or supercharged, because it can kill those fire mites before they get to the multi-inferno. And if you have 5 or fewer furnaces, that means you cannot overwhelm it, which very rarely are you going to have that many targeting one defense, right? So I'm going to put my Royal Champion here at the start of this attack because I know I can get at least 1 multi-inferno and probably 2 or the Town Hall, because she'll either come in this way and go up or come down depending on what she passes. So I'm going to go ahead and put her down. Once there is about 1, maybe 2 invisibility spells left, if I can, I will recall her. And then I've got the Rocket Spear so that as the side buildings get destroyed later on in the raid, I can send her into the core to get another multi-inferno or the Town Hall or the Monolith if it's isolated somehow. But I'm going to do this walk. Now, every time I do this style of Royal Champion charge, I always get a million people in the comments that are like, this guy's an idiot. He's wasting so many invisibility spells. So I'm going to take the rest of this replay and I'm going to do some math with you guys to explain why I'm doing the Spirit Walk the way that I'm doing it. If you have 11 invisibility spells, which is what I've got here, I'm going to assume you're going to get about 4.5 seconds. If you have the Phoenix, I'm going to assume you're going to get about 4.5 seconds of Royal Champion use time per invisibility spell. I'm giving you 0.25 seconds so that you can let her go visible for a tiny fraction, optimizing the charge, but also making sure that she can regenerate the health, right? If you add the Phoenix time on top of that, 4.5 times 11 plus the 8 seconds from the Phoenix is 57.5 seconds of total time that you're going to get with the Royal Champion. Now keep in mind, the 8 seconds from the Phoenix is never really 8 useful seconds. It's like maybe a third of the time where she actually gets 8 useful seconds out of the Phoenix, right? She's normally attacking ice golems or heroes or just stuck in a tornado or something, right? If you use the Spirit Walk the way I do here, which is overlapping the spells, you start with 3 seconds of invisibility with the Spirit Fox, and then for every 2 invisibility spells, you get 10 seconds of invisibility. So you get the 3 plus 50 seconds because you have 11 invisibility spells, and then the very last invisibility spell, you're almost going to treat it like you would a regular Royal Champion charge if you're going to use all 11, right? This is assuming you're going to use all 11, which you wouldn't with the Phoenix maybe necessarily, but you wouldn't here either. So I'm just going to assume you're using the same amount of spells for each. With the last cycle, only using 1 invisibility spell, you get 60 seconds from the invisibility spells and the 3 seconds from the Spirit Fox at the very beginning of the raid. So you're getting 63 seconds worth of useful Royal Champion time. So you get about 10% more value if you're overlapping or wasting, like people like to say in the comments, the invisibility spell. And you might think like, well, if I'm using the Phoenix, you can take the Rocket Spear and use that at the end and then let her die at the end. Yeah, but then you sacrifice the Haste Vial's passive ability and active ability, so you're probably going to get even less value that way than you do if you don't. So that's why I do the Royal Champion charge the way I do. And if you're really lucky and you're really good about the timing of the invisibility spells, you can actually use 1 invisibility spell for like the last 3 cycles. And I've gotten up to 93 seconds of useful Royal Champion time with 14 invisibility spells, which you can't get close to that with the Phoenix. With that long rant out of the way, if you guys Like, I swear to you, every time I do this, everybody's like, this idiot's wasting so many invisibility spells. You might as well just use the Phoenix. You suck. Okay, it's just so. That's why I do the walk the way I do. I get way more value, well, about 10% more value, which is probably 2 more defenses, 1.5 invisibility spells worth of time from the Royal Champion if I'm overlapping them the way I do, because I get the invisibility from the Spirit Fox every so often, so she stays alive a lot longer. Anyway, let's go into another replay. All right, I'm sure some of you are going to wonder, how do you tackle a double invis base? So let's go ahead and watch this replay. Basically what I will do is I will waste, quote unquote, an invisibility spell right at the start of the raid in order to get my Royal Champion to go to the invis section and trigger it, and then she will go back out to those other defenses. And by the time this ricochet cannon dies, I kind of really screwed up the timing and stuff here. By the time the ricochet cannon dies, those things are not visible again. I'll use my earthquake here as well, and then I will just continue to use that double cycle kind of invisibility spell, Spirit Walk, that I kind of explained last raid. And honestly, as long as we can clear this one invis section, that's enough value with the Royal Champion. You can recall her and leave a few invisibility spells for later on. I think that's what I do, if I remember right. I get this, and I don't think I use any more. Oh, okay, I do use one more. I probably shouldn't have. A bomb tower is not worth the Royal Champion or an invisibility spell. Okay, so at this point, the base is pretty symmetrical, so you're going to put your warden on one side and the siege barracks, the king, and the queen on the other side. And again, kind of like the last time, the amount of scary defenses that are ahead of the warden are going to dictate the amount of furnaces that you're going to want to use with the warden. You're going to always want to put 3 or 4 with him immediately just to kind of tank and help clear things a little bit more quickly. But I'm going to use my siege barracks. I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to kind of explain why I did things the way I did here. If you set your siege barracks clear down over here on like this side of the base, your king and your queen, even if you wall break, there's a chance that your queen's going to walk and stay, or your king is going to walk and stay on the outside of the wall. So I want this siege barracks to help clear some of these buildings, and I'm going to wall break here so that I can use my king ability. You've only got one wall breaker, so I always use my king ability way earlier than you ever would on any other attack, and I'm going to pop it when he's like on one of these 2 last buildings here to open up these walls and then have the spiky ball get some value. So you do need to use your king ability earlier than you normally would for funneling purposes and for time purposes. You don't want them beating on walls forever. So let's go ahead and push play. As my warden works his way down, I will place, one furnace every 10 seconds or so, just kind of along this line to help continuously tank for my warden. And then at that point, as they get further onto the base, I'm basically looking, is there a place that will overwhelm my warden? If so, that's probably where I want to use the Royal Champion so that I can kind of get that. And if not, where can I put the Royal Champion so that she can just target some scary defenses or some splash damage to make it easier for everything on the back end? The double invis bases are honestly kind of countered pretty hard by these furnaces because the fire mites don't trigger the invis spell. So they're going to continuously take these buildings down, even if they don't... like you can see, the fire mites are attacking these buildings and they're not triggering the invis spell. So that's kind of nice. By the time the invis triggers, it's basically the whole section's gone except for like the town hall and the monolith, I think. But yeah, I think I put my Royal Champion right over the right-hand side because the minion prince is over there and there's a ricochet cannon and ground expo, and we still have I think the Spirit Fox is alive. Maybe it's not. Yeah, it is. Okay, so the Spirit Fox is alive. Which is one benefit to using the Spirit Fox with the Royal Champion charge the way that I do, is you get the added benefit of the Spirit Fox at the end of this. And then, I mean, this base was so crushed that it didn't really matter. I could swag 2 invisibility spells. I don't know if I did or not, but we've got a lot of furnaces left. The Royal Champion, the Warden is basically full health. I've got to sneeze. Oh my gosh. Sorry if you had to hear that. And if you look at the time on the beginning of this attack, this one was pretty quick too. So let's dive into another replay. All right, if you're loading into Legend League, you should have a checklist of things that you're looking for. Are there multi-infernos? Yes or no? Can I get to them easily with my Royal Champion? If you can, absolutely, that should be the #1 target, right? So just quickly identify, click on one of the multi-infernos. You can't see all 3 if you do it in a replay, but you've got 3 here, right? So ideally, I want to take care of 2 of the 3 with the Royal Champion charge. But as long as you can take care of one of these 2 sections here, and then if she goes up afterwards, that's totally fine. Not a big deal, right? You can still deal with one of the other remaining 2 if she goes up with your heroes, your king and your queen. So not the end of the world if you can't get 2 of the 3, but if you can't get 2 of the 3, that's perfect. Actually, there is one replay I want to show you where they're isolated, all three of them in a rage tower in the core, and the rocket spear comes in really handy and deals with all three of them, I think, or at least two of the three. Anyway, let's go ahead and start this charge. So I'm going to put my royal champion in a place where it's kind of easy to get her into this poison tower section. If a Tesla popped up there, I would have used an invis to invis the Tesla and make sure that she goes into the middle anyway. I use my earthquake on this cluster of defense to make sure that the amount of shots it takes goes down, and I get more value from this walk. And then I'm going to actively put furnaces down behind your royal champion as you're doing the walk. Time is an issue that I see most people saying that they have with this attack. So make sure that you're doing this kind of thing. And towards the end of the spirit walk, this version of the attack's a little bit faster, right? Because you don't have 14 invisibility spells. You've only got 11. So there is less of a spirit walk on this one. So you can put your warden down a little faster. But you should always be good about putting your warden down when there's 2 or 3 invisibility spells left. And the royal champion does go up this time instead of down, which is kind of unfortunate, but I mean, it's still an insane spirit walk, right? You get a ton of value here. We're going to recall her, I think, right after this. Ricochet cannon goes down. Ice golems, witches, not a big deal, right? Furnaces, there's unlimited splash damage in this army, so the swarm CCs are not scary at all. Man, what is going on with my... All right, let's talk about this base for a second. As soon as you get into a Legend League attack or a friendly challenge or whatever it is, first thing you should do, click on the Inferno Towers. If they're single Infernos, don't worry about them too much. The Fire Mites will tank enough for your Warden to where they're usually not a problem, but you should have one, hopefully at least, but 2 ideally invis spells to make sure that you can break the target with the single Infernos or things like that, or a Monolith too. Since there are multi-Infernos on this base, I obviously want to deal with 2 of the 3 if I can. But these ones are obviously much more important than this one here because there's poison towers and more splash damage, right? I would consider like multi-arch towers kind of splash, but the scatter shots are definitely splash. The fire spitter is kind of not as great, but it is. It's not really splash at all, but it does hit 2 targets at once. So I'm going to put my royal champion where I can get one of the 2. I would have liked for her to go down to this second multi-inferno, but she does go up, which isn't a huge deal. One thing I have heard a lot of people say with this attack is that they struggle with time a little bit. So make sure that while your royal champion is doing the charge, that you're actively placing furnaces behind her. So when you've got a second of free time, just pop 1 or maybe 2 furnaces behind her to start clearing these trash buildings. And that will clear trash buildings and speed up the attack, but also it will make the funnel really good for your warden, for your king and queen when you put them down as well. The recall and the earthquake spell also speed this attack up a little bit. So this version is a slightly faster version of the army than the one that I showed off the other day. It's also a little bit better. I like the rocket spear. I'll show you a replay next where the rocket spear, like you see, it just pays for itself in like an insane amount. It gets so much value. It takes care of like 2 raged up multi-infernos. And okay, so after this ricochet cannon's done, obviously I recall. And we've got an insane funnel, right? And I can put my warden on one side of this funnel. Always put your warden on the easier side where there's less damage that can be done to him. Obviously, that's up at the top right here because my king and my queen with the magic mirror and the giant and then the earthquake boots and spiky ball, they can just burst down a really scary looking area really, really quickly. And then just like that last raid, I don't want my queen or my king to walk. I want him to go inside of this wall so that he can use his earthquake boots and spiky ball right when he's on this expo, opening up a bunch of these walls here. So I will, as soon as this mortar is being tanked for by something, I'll put the siege barracks right here with like a furnace by it so that these buildings are taken care of. And my king walks into this compartment because I don't want him to walk. So don't put your siege barracks and your furnace like clear over there. I want this. Okay, so I did put it down a little bit earlier than I thought. But anyway, that doesn't work. By the way, mass style CCs like witches and things like that, they're just not scary. There's like unlimited splash damage in this army. The furnaces do splash if you didn't know. So it's like, they're just not scary at all. They just wreck those kinds of CCs. So I get my king and my queen to walk into this wall here. Ideally, I'll pop my queen ability a little early on just to have a lot of damage at the beginning. But as soon as my king gets to this expo, I'm going to pop his ability so that the walls are opened up and he doesn't end up walking outside. That's always very important. As my warden's walking continuously this way, I'm going to place 1 or 2 furnaces every once in a while just to continuously tank for him. And then I will use my rocket spear with the royal champion here to snipe the town hall because nothing else would go that way. So this is a really good use case of the rocket spear here. And then you will see I have an extra invisibility spell. She gets stuck in the tornado here. And the Spirit Fox is still alive because of the way that I do and use my invis spells at the beginning, right? So I will keep my royal champion invisible to keep her alive. Obviously, the warden's going to latch onto her now, but that's totally fine. The royal champion and the warden both deal with multi-infernals really well. So if they do pair up like this, the synergy between the furnaces and the royal champion and the warden are actually really, it's pretty good right here, right? You'll deal with the splash damage really well with the royal champion and the warden, but you'll deal with the single target stuff really well with the furnaces. So they really complement each other really well with this army. And I would think this one was a pretty fast attack too. I don't think I really struggled with time on any of them except for like one today. But anyway, I want to show you another replay where the royal champion really helps deal with the core, because you do sometimes leave the core a little bit empty. And as the king and the queen are walking up one side, right, and then the warden's walking the other, you do leave the core empty. So the rocket spear can come in really handy for situations just like this one. But let's go into another replay. Okay, this is almost like a worst case scenario type of base for this army, because you've got 3 raged up multi-infernos in the core, as well as some more splash damage in the core, like the scatter shots. And it's a little bit difficult to get your royal champion to get there safely. So what I'll do, I get kind of lucky and she aggroes onto the king, who carries her into the core on this raid, but that's not always going to be the case. What my plan was I was going to, again, putting a furnace down really early. I was going to wait until she was attacking the expo and then invis here and get her to go mid. But you can see that didn't really work the way, because she ends up going to the king here. And I was like, oh, well. And then he drags her to the core. And I was like, I guess that kind of works. The Spirit Fox dies here, unfortunately, to like 1 shot. By the way, look at how easily the royal champion deals with a 3-furnace clan castle. They literally can't even get through her. So the CC was almost useless for this guy defensively, which is kind of nice. But even if it was ice golems, they would have gone out and died anyway. So I don't think it would have changed much. I was hoping that I could get at least one of the multi-infernals with my royal champion, but I wanted to try and save 1 invis. I think I do use them all here. But obviously with the Spirit Fox dying really early like this, it was kind of unfortunate. I wasn't expecting her to go into the middle like that. But then I put my warden down. The base is kind of symmetrical again, so it doesn't really matter that much what side you put your warden on. So I do put him on this side over here. And we're going to continuously put down the furnaces kind of on that side. And again, I'm going to use my siege barracks really close to my heroes, because I want my king to walk into this compartment. And I want to pop his ability when he's on one of these 2 buildings here, so that he doesn't turn around and start walking outside, because that's the most important thing, is just to keep your heroes into the dangerous parts of the base. It seems like I'm wasting or using the ability really early, but I promise you it's better than having him walk, so just be safe. As they're clearing up both sides here, this is where you will notice the rocket spear becomes really handy. As soon as this king dies, I'm going to put the royal champion right here, and she will get both of these multi-infernos and some other stuff in the core. So the multi-infernos are by far the scariest thing for the fire mites. So this was really nice to be able to just have my royal champion snipe those out as soon as she's done with the tornado, that is. Actually, it looks like the giant kind of helped with that other one. And then she'll still be alive to help deal with one of the fire spitters. And even though this is kind of the worst case scenario base, and I screwed up the royal champion charge kind of significantly, letting the Spirit Fox die so early, this one still ends up being a fairly comfortable 3-star. You can just see how much or how many furnaces and fire mites are still left over. This is like, you can see why the multi-inferno is the scariest thing. There are enough at this point to where we can kind of overwhelm it, but that's not usually the case. So we did get kind of lucky there. But again, this one might have been, I think this was the one raid where it was kind of close on time, but I still think I had like 8 seconds left at the end of this one. So it wasn't like super scary, but let's show one more replay. And then if you guys have any questions about the attack, if you see something that you had a question about or anything, let me know in the comments. Because I truly think this has the potential to be like one of the main meta armies right alongside of dragons and root riders, because I like, this was the closest raid by far today. But like all of the other ones, I feel like I'm crushing it with this attack right now. And I really feel like, I know that there are certain styles of attacks that people's personalities tend to be better with versus others. Like for the life, like I can go like 300 probably average with dragon attacks, but I just can't nail it down. But with root riders, I'm much more comfortable. With rocket and fireball, I'm way more comfortable. But like with this style of attack, it just matches the way I like to raid. So it might not be for everybody, but I'm happy to answer questions. All right, let's have this be the last replay. When I was looking at this base and getting into Legend League, I saw these defenses here and I thought, man, they're spaced out enough. And this core is like in the base enough to where I don't even think using 1 or 2 invisibility spells is going to be possible to get my royal champion to the core. So I just put her at the very bottom, which was like the next best option for the most amount of value. And what my plan actually was to clear out a lot of this stuff with my royal champion, have the Warden go one way, have my heroes go the other, and then redeploy the Royal Champion with the Rocket Spear to help deal with some of these buildings in the middle. But you'll see my King and my Queen get way more value than I ever anticipated that they would. So it ends up working out really well. I used my Earthquake later here than I probably should have too. So I wanted to just make sure it create a funnel for my Royal Champion's Rocket Spear to help take out the core. But yeah, again, my King and my Queen did way more work than I thought they were going to. They end up dealing with most of the core. So we get this cleared out. Again, this base is symmetrical basically after this is done. So I'm just going to put my Warden on a side. It doesn't really matter too much. If you can, let your Spirit Fox or your Royal Champion be visible for a second to let the CC come out. Then you don't have to deal with it in the middle of the base, which is nice. But even if you don't, the furnaces distract the CC enough and deal with the CC well enough that it doesn't really struggle that much. And again, I'm just going to use my siege barracks and my furnaces and everything here. I kind of just mass put 3 furnaces right there to help deal with that multi-archer tower a little bit, but it doesn't work out as well as I thought. So I put because I wanted my King and my Queen to go into that compartment, right? So I'm going to continuously put furnaces on this side, especially as my Warden's getting close to that ricochet cannon. That way he's not tanking a ricochet cannon and a couple of expos. So we burst that down pretty quickly. And then I'll pop my King ability again before he can walk around this compartment because I don't want him walking anywhere. And then this is where they kind of just wreck most of the core. And I'm like, oh, I don't really need to use my Royal Champion to deal with the core because the Warden should actually be fine to overwhelm it on the left-hand side. So then I kind of use my Royal Champion to help on the very right-hand side where all of those furnaces and fire mites are. But that was the plan originally. And it might seem a little bit scary to end on the town hall like this, but keep in mind, you can always watch the attack as it's going and save your Rocket Spear and your Royal Champion a little bit to help try and get the town hall. But again, it seems like every time I do end on the town hall, I'm overwhelming it at the end, and it's not really a struggle anyway. And we still have the Rocket Spear here, so I do use her to get the town hall with the Rocket Spear. And we are coming to the end of this base. Again, this was single Infernos too, so the core wasn't as scary, or I didn't worry about it as much as I would have otherwise. And this one, I think, man, I can't remember how much time I had left on this one. I didn't check the beginning of this replay, but look how many fire mites and stuff are left. There's only literally the single Inferno left, so this one was pretty crushed too. This might not look crushed because all of the army disappears, but man, the time is what dictates whether this attack was crushed or not, and this one was pretty comfortable. So hopefully you guys, man, I really feel like this army is going to be super strong. Like I really am crushing it with it, and I'm having a ton of fun doing it too. This is definitely one of the most fun armies I've used in a long time. But if you have any questions, again, let me know in the comments, because this one is a new attack, right? There's a lot of new aspects to it, like where to place the furnaces, when and how. So let me know in the comments. But if that will do it for this video, I will see you guys next time.